Welcome to episode 191 of the Campus Comics Cast, and here I am selling for a bronze medal. That's me, Scott Reed, and I'm joined on this episode by
Mike Atchison
and Chad Schubert, the gold medal, of course.
Nice. Okay, which I guess that means Mike.
That means
is the silver
I got
medalist.
silver, yeah.
Yeah, because because Chad gets the gold for
But
understanding the clue in, and I probably should, disqualify Mike or make him the bronze, and I should probably take the silver.
Well, if we're gonna be illiterate, I got the magnesium medal.
Okay. All right. And in this episode, we're going to talk about some of the big announcements that came out of San Diego Comic-Con. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that, but we figured we should acknowledge that San Diego Comic-Con does exist. The meat of the episode is going to be our first five about Cassandra Nova. If we have time, we'll do a little bit of what we've been reading, and then, of course, we'll wrap it up with some trivia and a CLZ Shake. So anything to mention before we dive in?
No, I'm ready to dive right in.
All right. Well, I think we should start with the publishing announcements at San Diego Comic-Con over the, movie announcements, because that's actually what I'm a little bit more interested in. And we've hinted about this in the past, but Mike, what are your thoughts on the announcement about DC rebranding to the old Bullet logo? I know you're the DC guy.
Oh, well, I think last time we talked about that on the last episode, and I think, Chad, you're right. I thought it was just going to affect the movies or the media side of it, the multimedia side, not necessarily the comics themselves, but it turns out that's what's going on. I think in October, they're going to re-inaugurate the old Bullet logo on probably, I guess, the DC All In book that's coming out. I don't know if it's an absolute book or if it's the DC All In, but I think it's DC All In. So I'm happy about that. That was the most recognizable logo for DC. I think it's stuck around it was around since the late 70s and on into the mid 2000s, I think. So I'm welcoming that.
Shad, were there any of these announcements from the publishers that piqued your interest more than any of the others?
Yeah, there were a couple, of course. And it's interesting. I'm a big Mad Cave. I like what they do from time to time. So the announcement that Joe Quesada is getting an imprint, the amazing imprint, is cool. I like to see those kind of smaller publishers getting the comeuppance. So that was really cool. The Dynamite announcing that they're going to have the DuckTales license coming up soon. And then the one that was more about the industry and less about the actual announcement was the Comics Beat announcing their K-Comics Beat, which will be a new site introducing more vertical scrolling web comics and also like Korean pop culture. But not really my big thing, but to see more of the industry going towards the vertical reading and how to make that better and perfect it is something that I don't think we're going to get away from. It's not going anywhere, and it's convenient to read. I'd read a couple comics vertically, and do enjoy it.
I see. I've tried to read some of those Marvel Unlimited stories, and I hate the vertical scroll. I just want to tap. I just want to tap on the right side of the screen and just move on. It's a whole lot less work than constantly swiping up. I don't disagree with that statement.
I think it's definitely a youth thing. I think it's not something for even me. I think it is definitely a youth is used to scrolling, and so if that's what gets them into comic reading is having a scroll vertical situation, then I'm all for it.
Well, one, I don't think that's going to get them into reading comics, whether they're scrolling or swiping. I mean, what's the difference between scrolling and swiping? So to me, it doesn't have to be vertical. They could scroll horizontally, and just do it page at a time, because it's basically the same motion, just which direction you're going. To me, it just kind of breaks up the flow of the panels, So
Yeah.
I just never ever I just can't get into it. I just can't do it. So I've tried a few times and just hasn't done anything for me yet. Maybe it's because they haven't really done anything innovative with it yet. So maybe if they find something new to do with it, then it'll be a little bit different. Because when those unlimited books started, it would be the same image, and then they would just pop in something else on top of that image where a character moves into the panel, or
Yeah,
almost more like
those
a
are neat
motion
too.
comics, and
Yeah.
as opposed to that vertical scrolling. So I don't know. Mike, were there
Well,
any of the
I
other
think.
announcements? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the most comics, or if not all comics, were when they were written. You would write or draw the panels to further the story and even to the turn page. And the scrolling, I don't know if that really allows that because it's so you can kind of go slide up and down, and I don't know that most comics are written or designed to go with that format of display. But like you said, maybe they will if this catches on.
Yeah, you lose out on that turn the page and you're presented with
Yeah.
a splash screen effect. You
Yep.
don't, or a splash page. You don't get that with that vertical scroll. So I personally don't think this is the answer for how it should be moving forward. But again, as Shad pointed out, I'm old, so get off my yard.
Yeah.
And
We'll by the time we'll be long gone, and it'll be the new way, and we'll be in some museums. They'll be talking about that side scrolling or actually turning
yeah,
physical media.
the people who just touch the right edge of the screen as opposed to sliding their finger from top to bottom.
Can you believe they did that? Oh my gosh,
Oh.
that's so archaic. Yes. And Chad will be like, "Yeah, I told my old co-host that, and they didn't want to hear it."
who both of whom died 20 years
Yeah.
ago because they're
Yeah.
old.
Maybe he'll come visit us in the nursing home and show us how popular it's become.
Of course. I'll rub it in your face for sure.
Yeah.
So, Mike, were there any other announcements from the publishers that caught your eye?
Well, I mean, I have been paying a little bit of attention to the Absolute line of DC, and we talked about this on last episode. When with previews and the pre-orders and all that. I don't want to rehash all that, but I on as far as comics go, no, I haven't really paid attention. I paid attention a little bit to the movie stuff, but no, I do think that Distillery. I'm still trying to see if it's going to make its way out of its early slump, but otherwise, not really.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to talk about. I guess I want to continue my Distillery bashing because I feel like that's what I do every time we have a previews or something is we Distillery
Yeah.
bash. But their big announcement was they're debuting technology that allows digital comics to be customized with signatures and sketches. All right, that doesn't do me any good. And the whole point when Distillery started, they're supposed to be these great stories, and how do they and presented in a unique way, which they never did the unique way. All they did was put everything in magazine size, which makes it difficult, and now it's like, oh, we have a digital that has customized signatures and random sketches on it. So to making them more unique and collectible. So it's basically NFTs is what they're talking about here from Distillery. Because it's like, oh, I got the signature in the lower left hand corner, and that's only 1 out of 1,000 versus the signature in the upper right hand corner, which is every 1 out of every 2 is that way. So that's to me is just a marketing ploy. That's just kind of garbage. I mean, they literally only have one new book announcement apparently, which is a Scott Snyder and Jock book, and I'm down to my last. This next book from Distillery, that Life book, which I had to reorder, by the way, is not any good. I'm done with Distillery. I'm going to stop trying because I've tried several of their books and they just haven't really done anything for me yet. So,
but going back to Marvel Comics, there was one title that I am interested in because it just reminded me of how much I liked that title in the
X-Men the manga.
No, no. West Coast Avengers. I remember when they came out. I remember Teen Titans West. I remember West Coast Avengers, and I enjoyed both of those titles. So I will be picking that up, and when it comes out in the fall. I'm surprised there's not more talk about expansion or the furtherance of this new X-Men line, which has been really ramping up in the last 6 months, and I'm buying a lot of them. I just
we
hope
don't need
that
any more expansion.
Well, I don't mean expansion as much as furtherance of it. I mean, just promote what you have. Don't always be reaching for the next thing when you still have. I mean, you're only a couple months in to the first issues of all these X-Men titles, and it's like the attention span. This doesn't help the attention span of the readership, and I kind of like to see something go 20, 40, 50 issues, and now we're it's like it's already jumped the shark and we're moving on to the next thing.
Well, Marvel did say that they're going to be moving the spotlight to FF, coming up for the Fantastic Four film release, which I don't know if that's a good idea or not. It's some of these characters they've been really, really good in movies, just been so-so and not been able to sell the comics themselves. And I just feel like FF is kind of one of those titles where it's tough. You got to have the right creative team, and you've got to have a firm dedication to make them important in the Marvel universe. And with so many crossovers, I just don't see it happening. So that kind of concerns me a little bit. But I do like that there's going to be a little bit of a push for FF. They're actually thinking, oh, we got a Fantastic Four movie coming out. Maybe we should do something with Fantastic Four.
Right.
Yeah. So, any of the other publisher announcements that really, really caught your eye, or you thought were interesting, or ridiculous, or?
Not really, no.
Congratulations to Oni Press for 20th anniversary Scott Pilgrim, I guess.
Oh yeah.
And you're not going to pick up the new Ronda Rousey book, Expecting the Unexpected, from AWA Studios?
No, probably not.
All right, I'm gonna bash on one more thing. So, Bad Idea, which I may talk about later if we get around to what we've been reading. So they are talking about stuff that's coming out. So they got this Planet Death by John Wick creator Derek Kolstad, writer Robert Venditti, coming out spring of 2025. They have when Bad Idea started, they were this comic shop focused publisher. It's like we want you to buy all the issues. If you buy 10 copies of issue 1, when issue 2 comes out, you have to buy at least 10 copies of issue 2, is how they were promoting themselves. They wanted to push things to the comic shop. And now they've completely abandoned that, and they're almost exclusively Kickstarter. So if want to know why you haven't seen any Bad Idea in the catalogs, because they're doing everything new on Kickstarter. So they have also apparently abandoned the comic book shops. So suck it, Bad Idea. Because their bad idea apparently was, and now they're just proving it. They're proving everybody else right. So, all right. So, movie news.
Well,
first?
I think you should.
Me?
Because there's not really any DC movie news.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Well, okay. So I guess the big announcement, everybody's heard it by now, is Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to play Dr. Doom in the MCU. This, of course, brought a lot of excitement. I'm interested to learn what it means to say new mask, same task. So how they're going to play into that in the MCU. The most interesting thing to me, though, and I'm looking to see where they actually said this at, but and I can't find it, but it's my understanding that they are going to explain how this happened in the comics before the movies. So we're going to learn about this switchover prior to, Robert Downey Jr. Appearing in the Doomsday movie. So it's going to be previewed in the comics, not just go straight to the big screen, which that I'm hopeful for. That's also going to drive a lot of sales for that particular book or that series whenever it comes out. So I guess that was kind of the big announcement. I don't know. You two have anything to add about that?
Well, it takes a lot. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say I have to put aside my thoughts about the look of, he's in person. He's basically cosplaying. It's not going to look the same in the movie as what it is in the announcement. I was a little bit underwhelmed by that, but otherwise, I'm happy to see Doom as the next big villain, and they had to do something big to replace the whole Kang storyline, and I think they did it in a big way.
Chad?
I just overall, it takes a lot to really move my needle when it comes to comic book stuff, movie wise anymore or TV wise. It's like I almost just want to I have to see it to like really get excited about it, like the actual finished product. And I'm like, all right, cool. I mean, I love Robert Downey Jr. So I don't have one way or another. I was surprised to see that there was no like history of a like Tony Stark in another world becomes Doctor Doom in the comic books, like that didn't already exist to kind of be the kind of blueprint for what they're going to do. And so it seems as though that may not it's not like he's going to be Tony Stark, or is he? Who knows? I guess what we're gonna see.
I believe it's going to be it is an alternate version, right? Yeah.
That's my understanding. So we're going to have an alternate version of Tony Stark. Okay. However, that being said, this has spiked the sales of a few books, particularly books like Iron Man issue 150 and 250, where we have these Doom Iron Man crossovers. Okay. There is also a What If issue, and I don't remember the issue number, where it's like, what if Tony Stark had become Doctor Doom? So some hints at this do exist in the existing Marvel catalog of stories. I don't want to say Marvel continuity, but the existing catalog of stories. There was even the day after San Diego Comic Con, I get up, I get notifications from eBay that 2 of my books had sold. First one was a lower grade copy of Infamous Iron Man #1. This is the first Tony Stark as an artificial intelligence. All right, and then the second one was a Heroes Reborn or Heroes Return. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it actually was titled Doomsday. And those had been sitting in my eBay store for at least 12 to 18 months, and then magically they both sell, at the exact same time, So so this has driven some interest in some back issues. So I keep meaning to go back and double check. I feel like I should have some Iron Man 150s and 250s in my boxes of stuff, but I just got to get off my lazy hind end and go look at those. So the actual announcement that I think I'm most excited from, or at least particularly from Marvel, is the fact that the Russo brothers are going to be back directing Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. And so they were the directors on, let's see, weren't they Captain America, the First Avenger, if I remember correctly?
Yeah.
At least one of them. So I feel like that's a good sign. So I'm very hopeful with their involvement.
And they were the 2 Avengers movies, the big ones.
The Endgame and Infinity.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I just, I couldn't remember for sure which ones they were actually involved in, so I didn't want to, make an error there. So thank you for saving me there, Shad. I appreciate it.
Yeah, they did the big ones. They did Winter Soldier, Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, and Endgame, some of the most successful ones.
Yeah.
And I heard that was that they were a stipulation of Robert Downey Jr. coming back was only if the Russo brothers also returned.
Well, okay. Well, good for Robert Downey Jr. for recognizing quality directors, I guess is what I have to say about that. So
yeah.
So any of the other, there's a lot of, I consider a lot of these non-cinematic announcements. I'm, talking about Amazon Prime, Yakuza, and Aliens and such. So were there any other the movie announcements that really spoke to either of you?
Interview with the Vampire, or the Vampire Lestat, which is the sequel or the second volume, I guess you'd say, novel in the Vampire trilogy by Anne Rice, and that it really peaked with Interview with the Vampire. So I'd be interested to maybe seeing how this turns out. I did watch the first couple episodes of Interview, and it was a little bit too row CW type stuff for me. But I don't know. It's just a series of books, a trilogy that I have always loved, so I will give it a chance.
Shad, any of these that really jump out at you?
No, not really. Not really at all. I mean, I'm curious to see how the Penguin show does, but not like holding my breath. Super excited for it. The Creature Commandos looks fine, but I'm not a really big animated person for the most part. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it's until I see it and go like, that was really great. I was really surprised by that. It doesn't really move my needle too much.
All right. Well, to digress on animated, I did watch the new Batman series on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good,
Oh, yeah.
especially if you're a fan of the original animated series. So it's a little bit more grown up than the original animated series, but at 10 episodes, it was really, really solid. Just a couple more things that caught my eye. Of course, we get the title for the upcoming Fantastic Four movie, which is just simply going to be First Steps. I hope that they allow this to grow. I hope they don't do like a Shang-Chi where they have to turn them into, in Shang-Chi, they turn him into a powerhouse at the end of the first episode when he really is just a kung fu fighter, And so I hope they build into that later on. And this is kind of a good news, bad news one. And this really isn't comic books, this games, computer games related. But BioShock, which is a really, really popular PC game title, right, is still in the works at Netflix, though they have scaled it back. So I don't know. I guess it's good. I'd kind of forgotten that this was in the works. So I guess it's good that it's still going to happen, but it's bad that it's scaled down a little bit. So, All right. So last chance. Anything to add?
Nothing for me.
All right. Well, let's just jump over then to our first five. And this is one of those, I think, times. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't speak about where I think everybody's first exposure to the character Cassandra Nova is, because I guess actually I'm going to know it's not correct. But of course, we're going to do our first five for Cassandra Nova. This came up because of the recent Deadpool movie. If those of you who haven't seen it, spoilers, Cassandra Nova's in it. And it's just a character that I was completely unfamiliar with. So we decided to talk about Cassandra Nova's first five appearances. Those are, of course, in New X-Men issues 114 to 117. And then the fifth appearance is actually in issue 120. Now, we kind of talked about we were going to read this whole entire story arc. I actually got through the entire Cassandra Nova run and even went into the Phantom X appearances that pop up later on. So how much of these, the first Cassandra Nova appearances, did you get through, Shad?
I just did my homework. I got to 120.
All right. Mike, what about you?
It was the same, except the reason, I mean, I did read I didn't skip go from 117 to 120. I did read 118 and 119, but my reasons for not continuing on were very valid, because I don't want to fill my brain up with a bunch of information that takes up space, valuable space, and I need all the space I can get to even talk on our episodes. So
okay, so why are you reading comics at all?
Oh, that's it. I'm not anymore. Thanks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You convinced them otherwise.
I just a lot of money, didn't I?
You know what?
Very happy.
Maybe you are right.
Yeah. There is such a thing as living in the moment, reading in the moment. But when we do this for homework, I try to actually remember what the heck I read. So, yeah, that's the reason I do it. It's not like I'm going to be talking about everything I read. But in this case, I didn't read any further because I didn't want to, take up real estate that I didn't need to.
Yeah.
Before I forget, our discussion on the Comic-Con announcements, the publishing announcements, that was from an article on Forbes written by Rob Salkovitz. He's a senior contributor there. And our movie announcements, that was from The Verge. And that article, as I scroll rapidly back up to the top of the page, was written by Charles Pulliam Moore. So I just forgot to give credit where credit was due on those two articles. So I just wanted to do that real fast. Sorry to derail the
you can't derail what has already been derailed. We're off the tracks all the time.
Oh, okay. Right. Have we been on the track yet?
No, we're still looking for the tracks.
All right. So, Mike, what was your first introduction to the character of Cassandra Nova?
It was this very series in real time in 2001, I guess. I decided after having seen what Morrison done with the Justice League and the JLA, the Big Seven run, I wanted him to be the person that introduced me to the X-Men. I had not read many X-Men books before that, so I picked these books up from Campus Comics back in the day, and I got the entire from 114 on to 150 whatever. I know Morrison was long gone by then, but Cassandra Nova, that's when I first read about her, was in that issue 114.
Shad, what about you?
There was a comic back in 2015 called X-Men 92 Infinite Comic. It was when they were kind of doing the new format of those Infinite comics. And they were picking up kind of where the X-Men animated series had left off, hence the X-Men 92. And Cassandra Nova was a character within that series, that 8-issue series. I don't remember a lot about her then, but I definitely remembered her, knew she was, kind of knew her power sets and who she was obviously related to.
Well, I feel like the big loser on this one because as far as I know, my first encounter with this character was the Deadpool Wolverine movie. I don't recall reading anything about Cassandra Nova prior to seeing her in that film, which that's an embarrassment. That how you two are feeling about me, that's how I feel about you two most of the time when we answer this question, just for the record.
But you have said before that that was the era that you sort of stepped out of comics a couple years,
yes.
Right?
So that was sometime there in the late 90s to about 2010. So I got this 10, 12-year period where I wasn't reading books on a regular basis. But to be honest, I am surprised. I actually hadn't read maybe previously the Phantom X issues of the new X-Men run period. And this really is a run, at least the Grant Morrison portion of it, that I should have at some point gone back and read. And I never got around to it. So this is actually a good double dip for me because it's one, introducing me to a character that I ashamedly saw first in a movie, and two, a run on the X-Men that I should have already read. So it's nice to be kind of forced back into to actually reading this. So
that's what we do. We force each other to read
that's
books.
Right. That's right. Hey, it keeps us honest,
Yeah.
All right. So what do you think about this initial version of the character? Let's just you go first.
She's definitely pulls off like a creepy vibe. She's like creepy, wrinkly old lady, kind of situation, and very powerful.
Yes.
And so it definitely seems like she is a good villain. I think for the X-Men, she kind of has this connection with Professor X, and she's got this high power set, and you just don't know where she's coming from. What is her motive? Her motive seems like it's to get rid of the mutants in general, but she's a mutant. So what is up with this person? She's a good mystery with a lot of connections and creepy.
Well, yeah, I'm going to jump in here, Shad, because creepy is the exact same word that I was going to use to describe her. So, Shad, or Mike, you take it from there.
Well, I mean, yeah, creepy. She definitely was that. She seemed older than her twin brother, but you find out later it's not really in this first 5 appearances that we learn much about the true, the nature of her origins. She's basically the genetic twin of Professor X, but it's not like she was conceived that way. And so it's interesting that I mean, it's pretty dark stuff. She's a nasty character, but I really thought someone who's got that very unique look like Professor X. I'm surprised that in having such power, I'm surprised they didn't have this idea or the concept of him having a twin in the past. It just seems kind of natural, but either way, it was leave it to Morrison to really develop that well. And I mean, I thought she was a cool villain, and she's got staying power because we've talked about some of the other renditions or iterations of the X-Men that she's been in.
All right. So now this next question, I think I'm probably a little off on since I did go through and kind of finish this story arc. But Shad, how much of this character's origin, and Mike, you actually just hinted on this as well, do you feel like we got from these first 5 issues? So what do you think about the character's origin, what we learned or didn't learn in these first 5 issues?
So that was one of the big things. Was I'm not 100%, and Mike just confirmed it unintentionally, but is that I wasn't immediately convinced that she's his sister, like that like full blood, like biologically born at the same time or have any of the same parents or any kind of upbringing together. There's definitely like this may not be the whole truth and nothing but the truth in that situation. So that was definitely something that came up within that is that and everything about, like I said before, her anti-mutant standing, she's a big ball of mystery in this first 5 of like what is gonna, which is, like I said, it's great reading, great to develop a character and want you to keep reading, which I did. I just haven't yet, but a lot of questions to be answered with her.
Mike, you want to add anything origin wise about the character?
No, just that I was feeling the same way. I'm like, how do you not know you have a twin sister, especially if you're a telepath, and especially if you're of the status of Charles Xavier? And of course, then we learn later he did actually know, but we don't want to spoil anything. But it's she's just a great villain, and I don't know. I don't know. You think about all of with DNA these days, and you find out things about you don't know about your lives. You're like, wow, this is. I hope I don't find I have some maniacal, twin sister that's out there ready to kill me and everybody I love. So just because I looked on, ancestry.com or something,
Okay, so you two can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I thought in these first 5 it was established that, okay, so humans, to me it was always humans were Homo sapien and mutants were Homo superior. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like this was a change by Morrison. He went from Homo sapiens to Homo sapiens superior. And then she described herself as Homo sapien, and I forget what word that she used, but basically she was the next evolutionary line. So that's why at the beginning of the story they do this comparison to Homo sapien versus Homo Neanderthal, right? Where it's like the sapiens are killing off the Neanderthals. Well, now she's the next line. She wants to kill off what came before her. So that's why we're going to have this genocide of Homo superior. So am I misremembering that, or is that from later story?
Yeah, no, that might be right. Yeah, from that that first issue. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that you're bringing it up.
Yeah, I don't remember if that's what it was originally. I just know the Homo sapiens or Homo sapiens superior, but everything she was saying, she contradicted herself. She's basically lobbying for the humans, but yet she's wanting to just use the humans to destroy the current mutants so that she can inaugur the next level of mutants in somehow.
Well, I guess the comparison, if you're looking at this from a purely evolutionary standpoint, is like Homo sapien wasn't worried about, what was it, Homo erectus that came before. I can't remember my exact terms here. Homo erectus that came before Homo neanderthalis. They were just worried about Homo neanderthal. They were the biggest threat. So to me,
and they coexisted. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And to me, she's not worried about Homo sapien, obviously, because we learned later on that with her power set, she can take over the entire Shi'ar empire, so she's not worried about 2 evolutionary steps behind her. The real threat is the evolutionary step that's immediately behind her, which would be Homo superior or Homo sapiens superior, how Morrison goes on to describe it. So that's kind of what I took for that. So she's actually theoretically the next evolutionary step. So this is, to me, this is the first time that we had that, something that's like, okay, we had Homo sapien to go to Homo superior. Now we know theoretically what the next thing's supposed to be. And this is that first introduction of that new thing that's going to replace the mutants, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what else? I mean, we may have learned about the brother sister thing earlier on. Of course, I remember it, and again, this is probably jumping ahead into that. I guess we'll call it the second 5 or the second half of her story arc, which again went on all the way to 126, where I guess Xavier in the womb recognized the threat and thought he was able to kill her.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, that's that could leave somebody scarred, obviously.
Yeah, because by the end of 120, it's just known that they share DNA, I believe.
Okay.
But it's not known that they're twins.
Well, it was because Beast did. I don't know. I guess he sent their DNA off to Ancestry, and they found out,
Right.
Hey, how come her DNA is exactly like yours?
Right.
So,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was in 120, I think, that happened. So yeah, that's when we first started getting the hint that there's, I mean, you kind of knew, but it unfolded very smoothly, I thought, even though sometimes Morrison can be pretty out there with stuff. I wasn't completely confused like I am sometimes with his writing.
Yeah. No, I thought it flowed pretty well, and was you don't want to be handed everything initially, right? You want to learn over time. Otherwise the first several pages of anything would just be text of this is the character, this is what you need to know about this character, and you want to get that through the storytelling sometimes.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there anything from the character's origins that you feel like, and again, this is a character I don't think any of us have a lot of experience with, but there's anything that's been forgotten or changed or retconned that you are aware of, that's different from the initial origin?
I'd say really the only thing that I can recognize is that if we're going from this to, and everything that I've seen in comics of her, to how she's represented in Deadpool and Wolverine, is her age is,
yes. Mm-hmm.
She's much younger. So I don't know if that's more of just a timeline of when she exists into the Marvel universe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Is she being introduced at a much younger time in her life, or does she not age? There's a couple of, I guess, until we see our MCU version of Xavier, we don't know if they are the same age or if she just doesn't age at all. Who knows?
You bring up a good point. I really wish, as much as I enjoyed the Deadpool Wolverine movie, I think I would have liked to see her with her full set of powers on display in a new X-Men movie. I think, and maybe we will someday. Maybe that'll be, she's powerful. And, but as far as, has the origin been retconned? I don't know. I mean, I think it retconned itself every issue as you find out more about, her being his twin and exactly what that meant. And again, I don't want to spoil too much, but but yet she kind of made herself his twin and then survived as a blob of substance somewhere. I don't know, in the sewers or something. I don't know. But it's all, it wasn't like, 10 years later, they just changed her origin. So I'd say that it's been consistent.
Yeah, I feel like as far as the movie version, they could have pulled that character out of whatever timeline she was from, any time, and brought her into that, the end of time, with Alioth there that we got from Loki season 1. So that could have been her at any point. So I don't really know that we had to consider that a retcon, the whole age thing. But
yeah, agreed.
But I think you're right. I think the character was well received enough that if we do finally get the mutants in a Marvel movie, for real, I guess, since there really wasn't any announcements about a new X-Men movie from San Diego. You thought they would have hinted at that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real good chance that we could see at least this actress again playing that character again. So
yeah.
All right, power sets. All right. So, Mike, some of the powers of this character that maybe particularly jumped out at you.
Well, I mean, first of all, I think Marvel is already pretty heavy on the telepath power set. I mean, it seems like about every fifth character has some sort of mental power, but she is clearly at the top level of telepaths. I mean, she's not just telepathic or telekinetic. She's got this phasing ability. I mean, I remember thinking about, and I'm not sure how this fits in with the power set, but Trask, the guy that was like the nephew of the guy that invented the Sentinels, she was able to basically, put her hand, just like you see in the movie, into his head, and maybe that was over time too. I don't know if that was actually the catalyst for getting his DNA, but she was able to basically take his DNA and reconstruct whatever she needed to control the Sentinels. So that's pretty big. I think a writer is going all out with a character like this, and I'd say she's in the top 10 most powerful characters in comics, the way it seems.
Well, in the X-Men and the Mutant Universe, they have this term that they throw around, and I think this is post Morrison's new X-Men, but they talk about these Omega level mutants. Like, so who is the most powerful teleporter? There's, I think Gateway is that, or so they have all these various Omega level. Well, I feel like she's like past Omega level, especially on the psionic abilities. If she can defeat Xavier and a Phoenix enhanced Jean Grey, then that puts her at a level above, those even, past Omega level for a mutant. And of course, she's technically not a mutant. She's the next step. So, yeah. Shad, what are some other powers that the character displayed that you remember?
I think Mike said most of everything I had. I put in that I just agree. I love the visualization of her reaching into people's minds, and that being there from the first issue. Like you said, we saw it in the movie, but it was from like the first introduction of her. Within like the first few pages, she was reaching into Trask's mind, and I was like, all right, cool. I didn't realize that was an immediate thing that she was going to be able to do. So that was cool.
Yeah, that was awesome to see that after having saw. I thought it was pretty cool effect in the movie, and then to just see that they had pulled straight from the comic books. Now, one thing, and I felt like this was, they didn't really spend a lot of time on this, but apparently she has very strong, not quite Wolverine level regenerative powers. Because if you remember, whenever they brought her back to the mansion the first time, Wolverine actually sliced her vocal cords so that she couldn't talk. And he said something like, hey, we don't have a whole lot of time because she's healing, right? To make a decision.
Right. I forgot about that.
So apparently part of her power set is also based on her ability to speak, because she wasn't able to, influence them while her vocal cords were actually cut. Right. At least that's how I interpreted what I read here in the story. So,
which to me doesn't make a whole lot of sense if she's a telepath. I'm not sure why you have to be able to vocally say anything, but I do understand that she could regenerate, because later we learned that that's how she basically formed her body. After coming over from the astral plane, she basically mentally constructed her own body. So given enough time, she can, I'm sure, heal as well.
I felt like there was one more, like major power that she exhibited, and I don't know.
This is a Morrison book. He there's going to be a new one every issue. I can't. You're right though. It seems like she had it, just kind of like whatever the situation, she came up with a new power. Yeah.
But I think obviously the telepathic psionic abilities were the key component to the character. So okay. Again, this is that question that we always seem to answer as we're talking initially about this, but how closely does this version of the character match with what we see in comics today, what's the same? What's the difference? Shad, I think you pointed out probably the big one since our most recent experience with this character is from the movie. There's a big age difference in the characters. We see a younger version versus this much older version of the character that we have here in the comics. Is there anything else, that?
No, not that I know of. I mean, I don't even know what she's in currently, if she's in anything or if she showed up in the Hickman X-Men kind of area at all.
But yeah, I mean, she was in like Marauders and some Astonishing X-Men. And that's not like I read all that stuff. I just looked it up. But, everything I seen about her was that she's this very small frame, diminutive person, which I think that's been consistent throughout, all the way from the very first issues here to the movie. So they've been consistent with that, which is cool because anybody that's like got mental powers, you don't need to be big and imposing.
Yeah.
I think the other big change is I feel like they've maybe, at least for sure for the movies, I feel like they have forgotten that she's the next step. She's the post mutant, not just a mutant. So I kind of felt like she was just a mutant in like Deadpool and Wolverine, and maybe that's something that hasn't stuck around with the character. So to me,
that's not the movie that it's going to come out in, though, is it? Because that's a fun movie. It's got a lot of Easter eggs and it's fun. It's not the deeper stuff's not going to come out there. That's why I'm hoping that she is brought back in an X-Men movie.
Shad, you want to add anything to that?
No, I'm all good over here.
Okay, so all right, so Will, Shad, then out of these first issues, are there any particular moments that you want to call some special attention to? What's your favorite issue out of all these?
Let's see. I think I already talked about the biggest one being her reaching into Trask's mind, physically in there. It was a pretty cool moment. Other than that, I had also in 117, I think it was, when she took over Charles's body, and like Hank's trying to attack her, but then she takes over Beak or talks to Beak and tells him to beat the living daylights out of Hank. And then that was brutal. And then Charles, with Nova taking over his body, just heads into space and is like, I'm out of here. See you guys.
Yep. Yeah. Mic drop.
Yeah. You guys deal with all this.
Yeah.
As
Mike,
far as my favorite,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'd say as far as my favorite issue is probably 116. The aftermath of seeing how deadly Cassandra Nova can be, taking out the entire island of 16 million mutants. And we get the diamond version of Emma Frost, and then we get a couple pretty brutal deaths of Cassandra Nova. The first one being Emma snapping her neck while she's got the headpiece on, and then after that she comes back, she regenerates and comes back to life, and then Charles just shoots her with his gun multiple times in the chest. It's like, geez, all right, well that's what we're dealing with in this issue.
Mike, what about you? Moments and favorite issue?
This is my favorite question of our first five. First of all, I had forgotten that she had killed the entire island nation of Genosha. I'd forgotten that was that many people there, 16 million. It was pretty stark, pretty drastic, or pretty vivid, too, because, you had Emma Frost with her students, and she did survive, but her students really didn't. So it was something. I mean, and I also, this version, especially of the X-Men, they aren't squeamish about killing when they have to. In 115, the only thing that really kind of was off-putting, but I guess I get it, was basically the mercy killing of Ugly John by Cyclops. Right. I mean, I know he was dying anyway, and Logan's like, Summers, do something about that, and it was really riveting and sad. And I don't know, it's one of them deals where you don't know how to feel about it. It's like, have you ever read the book of Mice and Men? I mean, it's kind of like that, Anyway, and then 116, it was the whole idea of of continuing the mutations. Beast turning from, sort of like the ape beast to the feline beast, and then Emma developing that mutation of the diamond skin, but she doesn't have her psionic powers or telepathic powers when she's got that protective diamond skin form. And I've always liked Emma Frost. She's very no nonsense. She's got that British biting, I don't want to say humor, but just her attitude. And I think my favorite scene out of the whole 5 issues was when Jean asked her what makes her such a B word, and she says, "Breeding, darling." Just as proud as she could be.
Yeah.
And on the downside, I remember this from before though, but the Cyclops and Jean Grey drama, I could do without that. I could always do without that. It just got so old. And then also I think, this whole advent of the really strange or kind of freakish mutants being emphasized in this series, Ugly John and then Beak, and then when you see some of the new students at the academy or whatever they call it, it reminds me of, I don't know if you ever read, did you guys ever read Danger Street, or did you ever read the original first issue special with the Outsiders? They were very deliberately designed freakish characters, but they were very good human, had human hearts and good people, but they were just, had all these deformities. And that's what this reminds me of. They really played that up. And I've never been a Frank Quitely apostle. I thought I always liked his stuff, but it was very, I could only read so much of it. So I was kind of glad to see the Manskiver take over on that, like 3rd or 4th issue, even though he comes with his own baggage nowadays. But if you take it, just objectively, I thought his art was really good. And I did notice that he tried to make Professor X look like Patrick Stewart. Did you notice that? I mean, he was just spitting image. And then, of course, the one new recruit that we talked about before we started recording, Angel is her name, but I couldn't remember what her code name is, and I don't think they even mention it until later. But she's a good addition. It was a lot of fun. And my favorite issue was 120, seeing Jean take down those U-Men of, I forget their leader's name, but I'm a big Jean Grey fan of the X-Men, and seeing her pull up those Phoenix powers and really show them how the cow ate the cabbage was a pretty cool several pages there that you got to see. That's it.
Well, I think for me, like my favorite issue, believe it or not, was the first one. I loved how Morrison introduced a new character, but tied it in so well with what had happened before, with bringing in the Sentinels and Master Mold, and that respect of what had the continuity that was there before. And I think that's something that Morrison is typically pretty good at. So I really, and I guess probably my take on this is a little skewed, having again seen this character first in a movie as opposed to having seen this character first in a comic. But I really liked that take. So it was just nice to see again that respect of continuity. Some things that really surprised me is like Morrison introduces the idea of Xavier carrying around a gun, and the reason why he's carrying around that gun, right, is in case somebody is going to get control of him, he's going to kill himself as opposed to let that happen. Now he's not able actually to pull that off, because he was kind of he threatened to do it here in this issue, but he wasn't willing to actually wasn't actually able to pull the trigger. And the kind of the big surprise to me is, okay, so we learn Cassandra Nova takes over Xavier's body, and that's when he does the mic drop and says, yeah, we're all mutants, I'm a mutant, and then I'm out of here, and calls in Lalandra from the Shi'ar Empire to come pick him up. And in that 2 issues or so where Cassandra Nova, we don't see Cassandra Nova, well, what's she out there doing? She's taking over the Shi'ar Empire and then bringing them back to Earth to destroy the mutants. So that's where she's going to actually put her plan into fruition by letting this intergalactic race come in and destroy the mutants for her, and then they'll be wiped out, and now the planet is free for her to come in and dominate at that point. So there was just so much, tie-ins to even going back to Claremont Byrne in this portion of the Morrison run. This feels like it really should have been the Uncanny X-Men and not the new X-Men, because it ties in so much with what there was in Uncanny before. So it was really, really solid. And now I like the Frank Quitely art, but man, when Quitely or Van Sciver wasn't on the book, the art got really, really bad in some of these issues. I mean, it was like, ooh.
I forget his name. Igor something was the
Corby.
artist on. Yeah. After I don't know that his storytelling ability was bad, but it was definitely stylistically less impressive than either Quitely or Van Sciver. But each of them, though, if to be fair, in their day, they were both at the top tier. So.
And of course, honestly, this is one of those cases where I feel like neither of those two artists, Quitely or Van Sciver, can do a monthly book, right? So they had to bring in people to offload some of that work. Mm-hmm. So I guess it really should be, stated that they're saving the day to keep this book coming out monthly, or at least relatively monthly. Like, I'm looking at the publication dates, and like they went from May to July. So like when the first two issues, it took 3 months for the first two issues to come out. And then they go July to August, August to September, September, October, October, November, then December, January. So then at that point, they were kind of able to stay on that monthly track, and it had to have been from bringing in some other artists to kind of keep it flowing, So
the days of Jack Kirby and all of those, are Dick Dillon, I think of. I mean, those guys, they just work 16-hour days, I think, and. Now, not that was good for him, because I think it's not, but
no.
Yeah.
All right, so Shad, you going to seek out this character anymore in the future, or are you going to? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I'm definitely going to, in a sense, because I'm definitely going to keep reading New X-Men, and it seems like she's not done showing up there, as you guys have shown. And I also would like to go back and reread the whole X-Men 92 run, now that I kind of have a little bit more of Cassandra Nova under my belt, and kind of see how she shows up in that kind of X-Men animated series world.
Okay, one thing real quick, Mike, before I turn it over to you, and I meant to mention this, but like that whole Genosha incident, they used that not with Cassandra Nova in X-Men 97. But it wasn't Cassandra Nova, right? That caused it in X-Men 97. So it was not as.
I need to do some catching. I never get to watch TV at home. I never take the time to watch TV at home. But while I'm over here, I think I need to probably do things like watch X-Men 97, the new Batman animated, some of those things that I should probably take the time to watch. So and Shad, you should start your own podcast on that X-Men 92. Or would you? Would you say you're going to reread?
I think there's already probably one or two of them that already exist.
Probably.
All right, Mike, you going to seek this character out?
Probably not the character, but I am going to now reread everything that I just relive what my experience in the early 2000s, which, to be honest, the 2000s I thought was, I'd say between, 99 and 07 or 08 was some of the best comics I've ever read, I thought. And I'd like to relive some of that. And that's both Marvel and DC. So I'll probably keep reading, considering that just because I have my tablet with me, I have the entire collection with me. So,
Okay, so Mike, you said earlier that Cassandra Nova showed up in Astonishing X-Men. Was that the Whedon run of Astonishing X-Men, or was that a different? I don't think so.
I think it was later. Okay. I think it was later. Yeah. It
was
like
good.
20-teens. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because whenever you said that, it's like, because I read that Joss Whedon Astonishing X-Men run, which I really, really enjoyed, and I thought, man, I don't remember her being in that run. So the main thing in that run was really the whole Kitty Pryde Colossus relationship.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'm like Shad. I think I'm going to continue reading. I actually, after I started this, I got up to issue 129, so I'm reading the introduction to Phantom X into the Marvel Universe, and I'm probably at least going to read through the end of Morrison's run on New X-Men. And I don't know what his last issue actually is, but that whole New X-Men series ends at 156. So, I mean, I may just go ahead and finish it since it's just going to be easy just to say next issue. And if
Right,
Cassandra Nova shows up again, I'm definitely not going to be disappointed if that were to happen. So I don't know if I'll actively seek out anything else from her, but if she shows up, it won't be a negative, that's for sure. So,
Right.
all right. Anybody got any final things they want to add on Cassandra Nova?
No, this was I think it was a good character for us to pick because it wasn't like a ultra familiar character to everyone, and it gave us a chance to maybe even expose some people to this character, whereas previous characters have been pretty well known. So I liked this pick.
Shad, any last thoughts?
Nope, all good over here.
Okay. You guys good on time to do maybe a couple of what we've been readings a piece? You think that's going to be okay?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So Mike, you want to go first?
WWBR, what we've been reading. So the first thing, that's the great thing about when you do digital reading, you can, you see what your past books are. So the first thing I did was look and see that in the past 30 days or so, I reread Justice League of America 166 to 168, which was written by Jerry Conway, and the art was by Dick Dillon and Frank McLaughlin. And the reason I reread this is I had heard on actually, one of our friends that communicates with us, Eric from the Long Box Review, covered one of the books in this 3-issue arc, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go back and read this arc. So it is one of my favorite classic Justice League story arcs. It came out in 1979, which is right in the era of my golden age of comics reading. I was about 12 years old, and apparently it was also one of Brad Meltzer's favorite because it partly inspired his Identity Crisis book. And it was also reprinted in the Justice League Greatest Stories Ever Told trade paperback. So essentially, the story arc before this was the Zatanna arc. This is back when Zatanna had this sort of like unitard type skin tight outfit. She didn't have the top hat and magician looking get up with the fishnet stockings, and she didn't have the later more superhero with the cape and the George Perez designed outfit. It was something in between, but the Justice League helped her find her mother in another dimension, which was occupied by, well, ironically, it was by, and we were talking about Homo sapiens and Homo sapiens superior. In this story arc, it was the Homo Magi. So they were the magical branch of the human race. So anyway, they get done with that storyline, and they are at Cinderella's funeral, Zatanna's mother's funeral, and they're ambushed. Red Tornado's actually ambushed by the Secret Society of Supervillains. Long story short, in these 3 issues, they are able to use a statue that switches their minds into the Justice Leaguers. So you had, the Wizard switched bodies with Superman. Reverse Flash became Green Lantern. Blockbuster became Batman. Star Sapphire became Zatanna, and the Floronic Man became Wonder Woman. So all of this hijinks ensues with them having, the bodies of the Justice Leaguers, but they act like themselves. So the rest of the Justice League are like, like Green Arrow and Elongated Man. They're like, what the heck is, they're being pretty, harsh about what they're going to do with villains now. So they figured out that it wasn't really them, and eventually, they got them back to their right bodies, and they I don't know what they did with the super secret society, what they did, but it was one of my favorite story arcs. So but yeah, 20 years later in Identity Crisis, it was revealed that when the villains controlled the Justice League members, that's when they discovered the heroes' secret identities, because they looked in the mirror and they seen, oh, that's so and so, and that's all been that was like basically a retcon, but that was sort of the catalyst for the whole mind wipe stuff that Zatanna did that caused all of the problems with Batman and some of the other Justice Leaguers. That was central to the identity crisis story. So yeah, that one, and I'll stop there and hand the baton over, since we're still in the Olympics. Yeah.
All right, Shad.
The one book I've really been reading lately, besides like homework, is a book called The Autumnal, and it is from it's from Vault. Sorry, I wrote it down, but it's further in my notes. It's from Vault Comics, and I've actually been reading. This is one of the books I've been reading vertically on the Global Comics app, and it is about a down on her luck mom with a teenage daughter. And they move from the city to a small town where the grandma, I guess, has passed and leaves the house to them. And it seems like your typical small town, except for some weird things here and there. And there's this myth of this witch that lives in the woods. And so far, it's really good. I'm not super deep into it, but the vertical comics are converted and then kind of broken up into smaller chapters, smaller than full-size issues even. So they're nice reads when you're just kind of standing around waiting. You can crush it in like a minute or two. And so I had not heard the writer is Daniel Kraus and the art is by Chris Sheehan. And I'm not familiar with either of them, but the cover is really what grabbed me. It's the cover of this like woman or little girl, and she's got like sticks coming out of her eyes and her nose, and it just looks weird. And I like a good horror comic. And so it is definitely something that Vault doesn't typically disappoint me most of the time. They're better than others. It seems for me, especially when it comes to horror. And so the Autumnal has been a pretty cool book for me.
This come out in print as well, right? Because I kind of remember this. And
mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually have the trade on my shelf and never read the trade. And then when it came vertical on Global Comics, I was like, well, I'll give it a shot there. Try it out.
Yeah, that's right up your alley, with the horror. And I'm looking at the image now of the, with the stick in the eye stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
But you give it a good thumbs up?
I give it a good thumbs up so far. I don't even know how far I am into it. I would say I'm probably close to halfway, and to like the full story, because obviously with it being broken up in a different way, I don't know the full range of it, but I feel like I've got to be close to halfway, and so far so good.
Okay.
I bought a collection that had several issues of the Autumnal in it, and I guess maybe I need to read at least the first issue or two just in case it's something that I should actually keep as opposed to just try to flip. So all right, so I've got from Bad Idea, which we talked a little bit about earlier, ENIAC, which is a 4-issue series written by Matt Kent, art by Doug Braithwaite, and color by Diego Rodriguez. And I think this was Bad Idea's first book that they put out underneath the whole Bad Idea label. Unfortunately, my ENIAC #1 is a not first print as opposed to a first print. But the concept of this is you basically have an artificial intelligence that has secretly kind of been working in the background to kind of manipulate world events. And they send this 2-woman team in to basically try to fight and undo a lot of the things that this ENIAC, the artificial intelligence, has actually been doing. But it's only a 4-issue commitment. It's kind of a military spy type of story. So if that's the type of story that you are interested in, it's definitely worth reading. Matt Kent almost always puts in a solid performance as a writer, and the artwork is really good by Doug Braithwaite. Does have some mature themes, so watch out for that. But also, as part of this series, there's a backup story also written by Matt Kent called Hero Trade. And the premise of this is that a guy basically has we'll say, dead superhero, and he's able to start selling off body parts because there's a black market for basically, dead heroes for some reason or another. So it's also kind of a little bit intriguing. There's a little bit more that goes on with that black market, but you get basically a double dip here for Matt Kent. So that's ENIAC 4-issue series from Bad Idea. Definitely, I really actually did like it. I kind of was surprised.
Yeah.
I kind of going into it, I thought, I really didn't actually know what it was going to be about whenever I just actually picked it up. I got suckered into one of the Bad Idea Kickstarters where I got everything that Bad Idea had done up to that point. I actually did it hoping to actually get a first print of ENIAC #1, but that didn't happen. But this was actually a pretty good story, so I definitely would recommend it to anybody.
It's got a pretty striking cover, just like the one Chad talked about. I mean, same kind of thing. It's got, I don't know, mechanics crawling up into the guy's face, but it has your, definitely, I know you're a
Yeah, I'm definitely a Matt Kent fan. So anything that he does, is definitely something to consider. So, Shad, you want to give us your second book?
Yeah, I don't have like a big second one. I would, the other book I've been keeping up with besides The Deviant, which I've talked about regularly, is Feral, which we talked about a little bit on the last previews, about it being fairly good as a follow-up to Stray Dogs, following cats this time. But with it being a slow build and the characters not being nearly as relatable or recognizable as the dogs were for one reason or another in the way that they're developing this, it's been okay. And I definitely am going to switch to trade reading it from here on out. But it's not horrible. It's still giving you what you want, and in the way that Stray Dogs did, with a very adult themed, but more of a Disney or Don Bluth style animation in the drawing, and so it's giving you all those things, but maybe not as good on the story.
All right. Well, I've got a second one that is actually a surprise, a big positive surprise for me. Because I am not generally a Scotty Young fan, but Scotty Young has a fairly new series here, Ain't No Grave, issue #1, which definitely has a Western feel for it. Scotty Young's doing the writing. Let me pull to the credits here. Art by Jorge Corona, coloring by Jean-Francois Ballou. I'll just emphasize the name because I'm sure I mispronounced it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But it's basically this woman. She is we'll just say she's kind of an outlaw, but meets the right man and kind of turns away from her outlaw life. But about a year or so, or probably longer after they have a child, I'm going to say she probably gets tuberculosis. She has some type of disease that basically she's going to die. All right. So the premise at this point is that she leaves her family. And of course, the husband and daughter don't want her to leave. But her goal is she's going to go kill death, because that's the only thing that can keep her alive, is if she just kills death. So it kind of has that Greek mythology, kind of crossing over the river Styx feel to it. But the first issue, at least, is outstanding. So as long as you don't absolutely hate Westerns, this is an exceptional story. So I give this I'm definitely going to be looking to pick up the trade for this whenever it comes out, because I definitely want to know what happens after that first issue. And I've heard some pretty good buzz about this series online as well. So yeah, it's Ain't No Grave from Scotty Young. Yeah. Have you read the first issue of that one?
I did read the first issue. Yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit as well.
Did you go any further than the first issue?
I have not yet.
Okay. All right. So, but you're going to try to pick it up at some point?
Yeah, I think so, at some point.
All right. So, Mike, you got a second book that you want to talk about?
Yeah, sorry for the hiatus there. My entire laptop crashed. I locked up completely. Yeah, I wanted to talk about Love Everlasting by Tom King. It was the I've got other stuff written down here, but it's next in line. So I did buy the single issues 1 through 5. It's from Image, and it's basically a psychological horror slash romance comic. You don't really know it's going to have a horror spin to it until you get into the last, almost every issue. The last couple pages just goes off the rails. It's crazy, a la King. And but it's kind of fun because it's got that, all the tropes of a romance story, but then it gets into the psychological stuff, and this basically this woman named Joan Peterson, that she's goes through like one love affair to the next, like she's changing worlds. She's just switching over. She doesn't even realize that she's done it until well into her next romance. So it's just a cycle of this stuff, but it's enough to where I bought the first issues just because it was King, and here it is a year later and I'm reading them. But now I definitely am going to go online or find a trade or something and keep reading them, because they are a lot of fun, and they're not, you might think there might just be romance, but it's definitely got this horror spin to it.
Do you guys have a 30-minute review or 30-second review on a third book that you want to talk about? You got a quick one, Mike?
I can.
30 seconds. Give
30
it
seconds.
30 seconds. Go.
Lord of the Jungle, #1 by Dynamite. Dan Jurgens and Benito Lego. Covers by Gary Frank. I only read the first issue, but it is a retelling of the Tarzan origin story, framed by an older John Clayton making a return to the jungle on a new mission. And the art looks just like Joe Kubert, so that alone is a win.
Shad, you got a 30-second one?
I do not.
Okay, I'm going to throw out for my 30-second one, Gotcha Man #1. I've talked about this before. I ordered it because of my PBS experience and not being able to watch Battle of the Planets. This is written by Cullen Bunn, art by Chris Batista. I've decided that there's just not a lot of depth to these characters. It's does not hold up to my expectations of something that I've actually been trying to, wanted to get into for however many years it's been since I was a young child trying to watch this. It feels like it's pretty vanilla as far as storytelling goes. I don't really feel like Cullen Bunn had much to work with in this particular series, so I'm going to say pass on Gotcha Man. But I think if you're probably just a Battle of the Planets fan, or maybe just a manga fan, then it might be something for you. So, okay. So, trivia? Ready to move on to trivia?
I still say that that's not Gotcha Man. It's Atcha Man.
Atcha Man. Okay. Well, it can be Atcha Man for you, but it's Gotcha Man for the rest of the world. All right. Trivia?
Yeah.
I did look ahead. There is not there's nothing related to anything that we've covered on this episode already.
Okay.
Thank God.
So it should be cleared of anybody that's thinking that we've got this thing swayed in one way or another. Are you guys ready for question #1?
As ready as we're going to be. Yep.
All right. This is a multiple choice. Which of the following characters was co-created by Stan Lee? Is it A, Luke Cage, B, Captain America, C, Gwen Stacy, or D, the Punisher?
Well, that would have to be Gwen Stacy, Mike, because Power Man, and Punisher was Roy Thomas era riding on Spider-Man, and I forgot what the other
was back in the 40s.
Yeah, that's a lot of people think Stan Lee had something to do with Captain America, but we're gonna go. Are you okay with us going with Gwen Stacy?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go with Gwen Stacy.
Stacy Gwen.
That's correct.
All right,
okay,
good deal. All right, next.
All right, 1 for 1. All right, question 2. This character, also known as X-51, first appeared in the Marvel Comics adaptation of 2001, A Space Odyssey, issue number 8 in 1977.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's Machine Man, Mike. But is that the question, asking who this character is?
Yes.
Yeah, and Aaron Stack is his quote-unquote human name, just for the record. So.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay,
that would be correct.
Okay, all right.
I concur with my phone a friend. Yes.
Right. Yes. Absolutely. I wouldn't have questioned that either. He was filling in the blanks before I even.
Oh
finished
yeah.
That's one character I do know and read those first couple of stories, and I have a few copies of that first appearance right now. So actually, I can see an issue of 2001: A Space Odyssey 8 behind me, about 8 feet away. So I could go grab it right now.
Do you have the Treasury edition?
I do not have the Treasury. Those key appearances I like to have the raw copies.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
All right, sorry.
All right, the next one is a DC question. Question number 3. This magically powered character first appeared in Hawkman number 4 in 1964.
I can even answer this one, Mike.
Does it start with a Z? Does it end with an A? And does he speak all her spells backwards?
That could be, yeah.
It's upside down, but I think so, yes.
Zatanna. Yes.
That is correct.
I will concur.
That's our full
You guys are doing good this time.
Yeah, and I have that first appearance also.
Yeah.
You have that one, Mike?
All right.
Yeah, I sure do.
Okay, good. All right, cool. You know
Question
what?
4.
For the first 3 questions, I just want to say I have all 3 of those issues so far. I got the first Gwen Stacy,
Nice.
I've got the first Machine Man, and I have the first Zatanna. So
Wow, maybe that's the theme. Maybe that's
there we
the
go. Yeah.
connective tissue. Yeah.
So, okay. 4. Sorry.
You might have this one too. I don't know. So question 4, which title replaced Marvel Team Up as the 3rd regular series Spider-Man title in 1985?
That should be Mike, Web of Spider-Man. It would be what I would go with. That was the 3rd Spider-Man book. So you okay with that?
Do you have that
Yes, sir.
in your collection?
Yes.
I do not keep Web of Spider-Man issue number 1 in my personal collection. I do, however, own a copy of that physically right now, but it's in my 2 sale pile. So we're going to say Web of Spider-Man issue number 1. Or Web of
That
Spider-Man.
is correct.
Okay. That'd be bad if that was wrong and me babbling on about Web of Spider-Man. So.
Right. All right, we are halfway through this, and you guys
right.
have 100%. So
Sweet.
so far so good. This character is the son and the killer of Charles Xavier, and is responsible for ushering in the Age of Apocalypse.
Okay, so that should be. Hopefully, we can get away with the superhero name, because that should be Legion.
Yes, you can.
It should be Legion, Mike. You okay with that answer?
Yeah, I knew that one too, but
okay, good. All right. So
is it
Legion?
the Legion that starts with an L? Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, that is correct.
Does it have his real name?
What's his full name? No,
I don't
it doesn't.
know. I don't actually know what Legion's full name is. So I assume his last name's Xavier, but
Right.
or no, wait a minute. No, that's not right. Yeah, Xavier. I assume his last name's Xavier, but I don't even know that. I just know Legion is all I know. So
Gotcha.
okay.
This next question is, if Scott better get this right because I'm pretty sure he could answer it in his sleep. This character was a Parker Brothers toy before appearing in a comic and comes from the planet Galador.
Yeah. I'm just going to say Rom the Space Knight, because especially on a CLZ Shake, right? I'm surprised they could actually ask that question, but I guess they can.
Goodness, we got some softballs this time.
Yeah,
these
these
the
are
Marvel ones, man.
Yeah, these are yeah.
All right. Question 7. What were the Infinity Stones originally called?
The gems.
Gems, yeah, the
Infinity
Infinity Gems. Yeah, I'm good with that.
I'm looking for a certain kind of gem. It's a 2-word answer.
So
I need a little bit more.
I know the distinction is not.
softballs.
I mean, in the movies they called them stones.
Stones, yeah.
But in the comics they were called gems.
Gems. So, I don't think it, because like space was one of them, so I don't think it's space. Oh my gosh, I don't recall, because the first one that we really encounter is the Soul Stone, and I'm trying to remember if the High Evolutionary calls it anything else other than just an Infinity Gem. I don't have.
I feel like you guys might challenge this answer.
Okay, so I'm just gonna. Okay, I'll just say I'll go Space Gems. You okay with Space Gems, Mike? Because I don't have a better answer.
No, gems is all I will stand by.
Okay, all right. So what you got? What's the correct answer, Shad?
Soul Gems is what it says the answer is.
Okay.
It doesn't say what the first Infinity Stone was called. It says what were the Infinity Stones called originally.
Okay. Well, I mean, so
I'm
the
throwing
first
my challenge
one
flag out there.
Yeah, I think I am too, because the first one that we got was the one that was given to Adam Warlock.
Soul Gem. Yeah.
Was Soul Gem in I think
the
it's
single.
Warlock
Yeah, that one.
issue number 1. It's when because up until that point he didn't have that on his forehead, right? So I think the better question is what was the first Infinity Gem or Stone? So I don't think they were all called Soul Gems.
They weren't all called Soul Gems.
But Chad's like, I didn't write these questions.
Yeah, he didn't write.
So I was like, you guys might challenge this. I don't know.
Okay, yeah. So we're going to dispute that one. So I may do some research here. So all right. Give us the last one.
Final question: what does the K in MODOK stand for?
I believe that's killing. So machine organism designed only for killing is what MODOK should stand for. So you okay with that, correct. Mike? Okay, all right, good.
Sounds good to me. All I know is this
all
was a very DC light.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Because they have all those various acronyms: MODOK, MODAM. I'm trying to think of some of the, and then sometimes I think MODOK is spelled with like a C at the end, depending on what the acronym stands for.
There's a town near mine about 15 miles away called MODOK, except it's with a C.
Okay. Okay. CLZ Shake. Anybody got the app open already?
No.
Nope. Okay, I'm opening now. Oh, shaking it up. I'm gonna shake again because it was just a Silver Surfer. Well, I can go back to Silver Surfer, but it's gonna be the same thing. So okay. So once again, I think I got this last time too, but I have Resurrection Man Volume 2. So this is the new 52. I don't know why I have listed that I have the second print in my collection. I must have just selected the wrong one whenever I was putting this in. But this is just when New 52 started, I, like many other people, just bought all 52 DC books that were coming out that month. So, and Resurrection Man was one of those. I definitely did not pick up the second issue of this series. I think there was only about 3 or 4 that I continued to read after the first issues. So I cannot say that I would recommend it. And actually, the New 52 titles, even within the last week or so, I was like, I just need to pull all those out and either sell them as a set or, put some of them in the dollar boxes and put some of them, that are actually worth, a few bucks, like the Batman and whatever, put those out, for sale individually. So this is probably something that's going to be culled from my collection at some point if I just get off my lazy hind end and do it. So,
I think at Perryville when we were together, I picked up that first issue of the New 52 Resurrection Man because I had the ones from the 90s and I just wanted to see if it held up.
Oh.
Okay, me?
Right,
Shad. Go ahead, Shad. Yeah.
All right, we got Jim Henson's Power of the Dark Crystal, issue 6. There's nothing specifically special about this issue. Power of the Dark Crystal was a great series written by Spurrier and art by Kelly Matthews. And I am all for more Dark Crystal spin-off series. Art was beautiful. Story was great.
What year did it come out?
2017 maybe. I already closed it out. I think it's somewhere in that realm.
I have definitely become a Cy Spurrier fan. I am with his Flash run now. And I read the Black Knight series that he did, the little mini series he did. I'm definitely behind him. So I wouldn't mind reading that.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Okay. Shake. Don't know if you can see.
Justice League something.
It is Justice League Volume 1, number 66. This is way back in 1968. And it is basically Snapper Carr, which was their sort of little mascot guy, and who eventually betrayed them. But he gains the help of some of the league to assist one of his college professors. But when they arrive at the college, they're amazed to find out the students and the professor have been acting strangely, and basically it's just a mess. I don't know. I'm sitting here reading the description. It doesn't make sense, but I remember this cover, and I remember it being one of the earlier Dick Dillon written or drawn ones. But it's it's the main characters were Snapper Carr, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Superman, and Atom. So it was a small, kind of like just a small story. It wasn't like a big Justice League story.
Okay, so Shad, what do we have coming up on episode 192?
192 is going to be a next phase / preview / pre-order / any kind of new books coming out. And just to confirm what we were talking about, Soul Gems is correct.
Okay.
They were referred to Soul Gems up until the looks like maybe the Thanos quest in 1990 is when they were first referred to as Infinity Gems. But before that, they were all Soul Gems, and they were different Soul Gems, but they were all just referred to as the 6 Soul Gems.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to take half credit on that one because I did talk about Soul Gems being the Soul Gem being the first one. So I think we'll take half credit on that. So we're going to go with we got 7.5.
You get to decide how much credit you get. I am.
I can cut this off right now. So.
This is my ball, and I'm taking it home.
That's right. I'm gonna take my recording and just leave. So.
No, that's fair though. But I think that's interesting that how media over the years, your mind kind of realigns with whatever they promote it as. I would have never gotten that.
Well, I did not realize they were ever not referred to before as. I honestly thought it was just there was a Soul Gem. And then later on, Starlin expanded it to add these other gems
that led to the Infinity War and all. Yeah.
Yeah, and I never would have thought that they were collectively referred to as Soul Gems prior to them becoming Infinity Gems.
Yeah, the second Soul Gem was technically the Mind Gem in Captain Marvel something or other in the 70s.
Oh, okay. So, all right. Well, that could have been after Warlock. Yeah. So. Okay.
Yes.
I was trying to think of. I mean, I might be wrong about what the first one is. I thought it was the Soul Gem was the first one. So
we're happy.
I think you are 100% correct.
Oh, okay, good. All right. Besides podcasts at birdcomics.com, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, Mike, how might they do that?
I'd say the first place to go would be Mike at comicshoproadshow.com. And you can also hit me up on X or Blue Sky. Just either search my name. X is Mike Atchison 5. My Comic Shop Roadshow on Blue Sky. But it's easy enough. Or you can. I also like to promote our Campus Comics Cast Facebook page. It's an easy place to drop a comment. If you don't want to write a whole email, just drop a comment in. Tell us what you think.
All right, Shad. What about you?
You can find me, shadschubert.com is usually the best place to get all the links to everything. That's SHAADSCHUBERT.com.
All right, and I'm Scott Reed. You can find me at burgcomics.com, BURGcomics.com, where you'll find links to my Facebook page, eBay store, etc. And we'll be back soon with episode 192.
All right, did anybody want to say anything really, really clever or stupid for a stinger for... Here's your chance, Mike. No, I can't be stupid under pressure. I gotta be stupid naturally.